pairing and those kinds of things. I've come up with my own way of doing things after 25 years. And the idea of drilling and killing, those kinds of things. So just give me just 1 second. And if there's time, and we should have time, I'm going to give you a 5-minute preview of how you use DIL here if you want to bring your classes here, those of you who are instructors, or if you're going to be a future instructor, how DIL works, and maybe you can get that in your labs, or maybe they have them in your high school or middle school labs. So anyway, I'll put this in my French 101, and I hid it so they couldn't see it, or they'd be confused. What is this? So just so I could get to it easily. Okay. So when I was first starting out as a teacher, instructor, there were a lot of immersion methods going around in the air. There was the Razius method, there was the Capret's method with French in Action, and we used French in Action here at Rider for several years. And by total immersion, I mean total immersion. We did things, but the backwards design that we do now, where we would just start talking and showing videos and explaining things. And they would get the sentences, they would sort of understand what was going on. Then we would go backwards and teach them more structurally. This is the present tense, and this is how you do it. But we just threw them in into the soup. And it worked. It worked very well, but one of the problems at Rider is we only meet 3 days a week, or 2 if you teach 1.5 hours. That kind of method really requires sustained energy for at least 4-day class periods. And in Yale, where the Capret's method came, they had 5 days a week. So, and it's very exhausting. But it does work. The problem that has arisen in the 25 years I've been teaching, because I have tried total immersion in other ways, is something you're going to notice: the weakness in K through 12 in grammar instruction, and that's filtering into our classes. And I'm not blaming the students in any way. The emphasis has been more on content production and less on correct spelling, correct grammar, because we want students to write. We want students to write more. And in the language classrooms, we want them to speak really well. The problem is we're losing something. We have to find a way to balance something that I think has become imbalanced. So rather than knock my head against the wall 100,000 times, teaching like I used to, where I would give the grammar lesson in French the very first time, and it worked. It used to work, but now it doesn't, because they don't know what a direct object is if I'm going to have a lesson on direct object pronouns and how to replace. So I've talked to Dr. Nathan, I've talked to colleagues around, and I've come up with a way that's been working really well, and I've been modifying it a little bit. But okay, the goal is to speak Spanish or French or German or Italian as much as possible, 100% if you can. But if there comes along a lesson with a really heavy grammar focus, especially something that's so different from the structure in English, you need to take a timeout in English. The way you do that, though, is not to break into English and then back to Spanish, then back to English and back, because their expectation is she's going to bail us out at any moment now and speak English, so I'm just going to kind of wait until that happens. That can't happen that way. So I set aside a time, 5 to 7 minutes, depending on the lesson, where I introduce, and they understand this in French 100, 101, that this is the time I'm going to speak English to give you the grammar lesson. And while I'm doing the English, I'm also giving them the French terms that I'm going to use from now on. So I say, une petite parenthèse en anglais, a little parenthesis in English, and they know, okay, they relax a little, and I explain everything in English. What's a direct object? Because we're going to learn today how to replace those with direct object pronouns. So some students do have really good grammar background. And so for them, it will go quicker, and it's a nice review. For others, this really is the first time they're learning parts of speech, or at least certain parts of speech. So I'll put, I see the man. I see the Marie. And I say, okay, there's the man, there's Marie. How can we replace those in English? Oh, I see him. I see her. Okay, what about I see the chair? Oh, I see it. I say, those are all direct objects, people and things that follow a verb directly. We don't have to say, I see to the man. I see at Mary. I just see her. Oh, I get it. It's direct. And I say, okay, in French, pronom objet direct. We're going to replace objet direct par un pronom objet direct. And I write that. So they know the terms now. And they don't just know the terms, they know what they mean. So once I go through that petite parenthèse, then I say fin de parenthèse. On parle français maintenant. We speak French now. And then I redo that entire lesson in French, using all the French terms. So this is the beginning of the scaffolding process. And now for me, it's starting at English. Now the rest of the class is French. Then I can move on. The question of drill or kill, okay? There comes a point where they have to practice. They have to be able, if I say parlez-nous, they say, oh, nous parlons. Choisir-tu, tu choisis. You know, they need to be able to do that quickly. So, and you need to be sort of sitting on the edge of your chair a little. Now, Dr. Nathan does that great. But I need them to be ready right away. You need to practice these. And if it's been weak every time I call on you, next time, you know, you're going to have to do better. And so I do some drill, and I guess it used to be called drill and kill. I'd call it practice. Practice makes perfect. And I do that, and that's the next level of scaffolding. After that, then I move into weaving these into sentences within context, cultural context. And that, at this point, it's a really good foundation. If the class ends at this point, the next time we pick up going back down on the ladder a little bit, and then I move back up. So I do have another introduction in each class to some drilling, and then I move back up. Even if we've gotten to a certain level on the ladder, the next time I go down a little, just to get everyone back up. So I'm going to show you, all of you teach the past tense, right, in your classes, no matter what language. In French and Spanish and Italian, I know we have pretérito imperfecto, imparfait and passé composé in French. And in German, I'm not sure what the past tenses are, but what are they? It's perfect. So it has the same?
One, simple past.
Okay, so you're going to be manipulating a couple past tenses also, like no matter what language. So that would be a good chance to do a little parentheses in Spanish or German or whatever to explain. And I do explain it, the difference between imparfait, ongoing past actions, description, you know, we give lots of examples. I have a little paragraph in English after I explain the difference. I have the verbs underlined. I said, if you were to translate this into French, we're not going to, but if we were, which tense would you use? Again, this is just our little intro in English. And it calms it down. They get it just by understanding it first in their own language, and then we move to French. Now, by the time I get to the top of the scaffold, I want authentic material. I want culturally relevant. It's woven into all of my sentence examples also. You know, I have lots of Macron stuff, you know, the new French president. We did the Olympic Games in French too, that were just awarded to Paris for 2024. That kind of thing. It comes in as we move up the ladder. But if you're looking for something beyond what your textbook provides for some cultural things, go to movies, especially silent films, and just show a clip. What's great is they're silent. You know, you don't have any language whatsoever, and they're going to fill it in. So here's one. Maggie, Dr. Schleissner is going to love this because what's interesting is he's speaking French, but the subtitles are in German. Why, I don't know. He must have been interviewed for German TV. But then after that, you see the little skit. So this is Marcel Marceau. I don't know if you remember this from our class, but I'll show you. So Marcel Marceau, a famous French mime, did pantomime. And invariably, a student raises her hand, hey, isn't that in that Geico commercial or that insurance commercial? Somebody does just like that? I said, yes, it's an imitation of this art form that was perfected by Marcel Marceau, and you know, I give them
Meta.
Right, and the students see it, and they had no idea that this was an actual art form that was, you know, used. That Michael Jackson imitated Marcel Marceau, even in his costumes and in his, you know, moonwalks and other things he did in his videos. So anyway, this is, I want you to watch it. It's only a minute and a half, and then I'm going to show you what I do at a level 101, and something I might do a little differently with more advanced students. But it's kind of fun to watch anyway. Pay attention to what's going on. And I explain in French that he's playing, il joue deux rôles. He's playing two roles. He's playing le serveur dans un café, the waiter in a café, and a very unhappy customer. So he goes back and forth between the two roles. So now he's speaking and the sound is not working, but that's okay. Maggie, you know what he's saying. I'm not so sure. But that's okay, because we're going to see the clip. Oh, that's why.
That's why.
The sound is off. Maybe that's why. Okay, well, anyway, here we go. It's a shame the sound's not on because you can hear the audience is going
Oh.
crazy at this point. They're laughing. And so we see he tricked the customer into thinking he actually did something when he brought it back into the kitchen. So for the French 100 or 101, especially 101, I teach French too. An advanced class in Spanish or German or whatever could just sit down and talk about this in the past, switching between preterite and imperfect. What happened? What were the emotions of the customer? She was angry or he was angry. That's imparfait, you know, back and forth. Why? What was the meat like? So they can describe using imparfait. They can tell action using passé composé. The students in the lower level do need a little help with that, with the longer sentence construction. They get the idea, they truly do, but they do need some help. So I do provide a list with the blanks. The waiter gave une assiette de viande à une dame dans un café. So he gave it, over and done with, completed action, passé composé. And actually for this, I do let them work in pairs. So I do some pairing and group work.
Vive la différence.
Yeah, so we're giving you what our experience has been and what works best for our style of teaching. But I think we all have the same goal. We want them to really think in this language. We want them to understand that people understand the world differently through the use of this language, that there's a cultural component to every word that is spoken and sentences. And if I say house, my view is very different from a French person when they say maison. Just what comes to their mind is different, what it looks like and who's in it and that sort of thing. So I wanted to give you some ideas. There another. By the way, if you're wondering, I did make these. You can make them links that go right to YouTube, but then you're stuck watching advertisements sometimes before. So I download them. I create MP4 files, and what's nice is they'll never disappear. Sometimes those links disappear. So if anyone needs help with that, I can help you later. Okay, yeah, show you how to do that. But there's also the wonderful silent films from the 1920s in French or in any language. You could use this French one for a German or Spanish class. They watch this woman crying on a bench, and a man hands her food, and you know they can create a story of what happened. So I would recommend silent films for teaching of the past tense, or film clips with the sound off if you can't find something that you like for that. So while we have 7 minutes, and I promise this will only take 4. So we have this access in this lab to something called DIL, and I hope in the future all of you who are teaching have this also, or something similar. I only use this a couple times a semester for oral testing, but I'm going to show you what you can use this for otherwise. So while I'm getting it hooked up, I need all of you to log into your computer, and I'll show you what to do after that. Once we're all up and running, it only takes 4, but we're getting there. Okay, so.
Do we go on the pickle?
Yes, once you're all logged in, see this dill pickle bottle here?
Oh, cool.
Then you have to log into that. So log into Dill, and you're going to start seeing yourselves appear here.
Wait, mine actually has almost like a cucumber slice.
The cucumber slice is actually the lab controller.
No, I mean the cucumber.
No,
I'm
wait.
in the, I'm in the.
You want the
new-
pickle slice, I'm sorry. That's
We
what
do
it
want
should
the
be.
pickle
Yes,
slice?
you do want the pickle slice, I'm sorry.
Wait, how come I didn't get a jar?
Let me see. The jar is for the lab controller, I believe.
Oh, okay. We
Yes,
don't- we
that's for
don't
me.
get the
I get the
jar.
whole jar. You get a slice. So you're looking for your slice of the pickle and log in. Okay. So if you're up here teaching, you're going to have the whole thing. So can you start to see your bubbles appearing? You know,
No?
and I can see you're up and
Over
running.
there, look, we are.
Where?
Yeah, no.
There's
Oh, yeah,
Daria,
yeah,
there's
here.
Stefan, there's Mandy. Mandy's here. And Mary Quinn, you're up.
Woohoo, I'm there.
So see, can you see your excitement already?
Yes,
Oh,
we're
there
feeling
I am. I'm here.
Hello.